It was 2 a.m., and the diner's neon sign flickered in the foggy drizzle outside, casting a soft glow on the empty street. Inside, the clatter of silverware and the occasional hum of the soda machine were the only sounds that punctuated the silence. At a corner booth, a single dad sat hunched over 3 little chairs pushed together, trying to corral his 3-year-old triplets. The kids were sticky with remnants of melted chocolate and syrup, their tiny faces bright with the kind of innocent chaos only toddlers can manage. Jason Harper hadn't slept in over 24 hours. Work had been relentless, and the kids had been up with fevers, coughing and fussing through the night. Yet here he was, still trying to make the night bearable, smiling through the exhaustion, his heart heavier than his eyelids. He watched his daughters, Lily, Emma, and Sophie, giggling as they shared a plate of pancakes that were far too big for their tiny hands. The diner was quiet, almost eerily so. Jason was grateful for the calm. It meant fewer eyes watching him struggle, fewer judgments for a single dad trying to do everything alone. He felt invisible in most places, and yet he bore the weight of the world on his shoulders like it was his natural posture. Most people didn't see the late-night sacrifices, the endless diapers, the hospital visits, or the nights he stayed awake just to make sure they were breathing peacefully. But he did it because he loved them more than he could ever explain. As he refilled the kids' juice cups and cleaned up a syrup, spilled with trembling hands, the diner door opened. A gust of cold wind swept inside, carrying a faint perfume and a whisper of silk. Jason barely looked up, thinking it was another late-night customer looking for coffee. But then he noticed her. She was impossible to ignore. Tall, poised, with a sense of grace that seemed almost untouchable. Her eyes, sharp yet warm, locked on the chaos of his booth. She watched him quietly for a moment, and Jason immediately felt the familiar knot of discomfort. Did she think he couldn't handle his kids? Did she think he was struggling too much? But she didn't say a word. Instead, she walked over, pulled out a chair, and sat across from him. "I couldn't help but notice you," she said softly, almost as if speaking to the universe instead of him. "You're doing something incredible." Jason blinked, unsure if he had heard her correctly. "Excuse me?" he asked, weary, tired, and slightly defensive. "You're a single dad. You're raising triplets at 2 a.m. in a diner, feeding them pancakes, keeping them happy when they're sick, exhausted, and probably driving you insane. That is incredible." She smiled, but it wasn't the kind of polite smile people give to strangers. It was sincere. Thanks," Jason stammered, feeling the sting of emotion he didn't have time to process. "I'm Lauren Whitmore," she said, offering her hand. Jason took it hesitantly. "I own Whitmore Enterprises, but that's not why I'm here. I'm here because I saw something that matters more than money or success or fame. I saw humanity and kindness, and I wanted to tell you that it's extraordinary." Jason shook his head, trying to laugh it off. "You really shouldn't waste your time on strangers like me. We're just surviving." Lauren's eyes softened. "Surviving isn't just anything. It's bravery. You're brave, Jason, and your daughters are lucky to have you." The moment hung between them like fragile glass. For the first time that night, Jason allowed himself to feel seen. Not for what he owned or didn't own, but for the heart he carried, for the love that fueled every exhausted breath. The triplets, oblivious to the adult conversation, continued their pancake battle, giggling as Lily smeared syrup on Emma's nose. Jason wiped it off, laughing softly despite the fatigue. Lauren watched, mesmerized by the raw, unfiltered love in that booth. It wasn't staged, it wasn't perfect, it was real. "You know," Lauren said after a pause, "I've been looking for ways to give back, to make a difference that actually matters. And seeing you tonight, I think I know where to start." Jason's heart thumped in his chest. "I'm not sure what you mean," he said cautiously. Lauren leaned in, her tone conspiratorial yet gentle. "I want to help you. Not just with a handout, but with the support you deserve. I have the means and I have the resources. But what I can't give you is what you're giving these girls. That love, that dedication, that's priceless. I want to make sure it doesn't get overshadowed by struggles that shouldn't be yours alone." Jason felt tears prick his eyes. He had been working 2 jobs, sacrificing every little thing he loved just to keep his daughters safe and fed. And here was someone, a billionaire heiress no less, offering not charity, but partnership, a chance to ease his burden without taking away his dignity. "You don't have to decide now," Lauren said, smiling as she watched him wrestle with disbelief and gratitude. "But know this, the world needs more people like you. And I want to make sure you can keep doing what you're doing." For a long moment, Jason couldn't speak. The words that wanted to come out tangled in his throat. Finally, he managed, I don't know what to say." "Then don't say anything," Lauren replied softly. "Just keep being who you are. The rest, we'll figure out together." That night, Jason didn't just leave the diner with a promise of support. He left with a renewed sense of hope. The weight of exhaustion was still there, but it was lighter, buffered by the kindness of a stranger who saw humanity in the smallest moments. It wasn't a fairy tale. It wasn't a miracle overnight, but it was a reminder that even in the darkest hours, compassion could arrive when least expected. Over the next weeks, Lauren kept her word. She connected Jason with resources that made daily life manageable. Flexible childcare, tutoring for the girls, and even a small apartment closer to his workplace so he could sleep properly. But she never intervened where it wasn't needed. She was a silent guardian, proving that generosity is most powerful when it empowers rather than controls. The triplets continued to grow, their laughter echoing through their new home, filling spaces that had once felt like survival zones. And Jason felt the rare, fleeting joy of not always being alone in the struggle. Sometimes he caught himself glancing at the city skyline and thinking of the woman who had changed the trajectory of their lives with nothing more than a heartfelt recognition of his efforts. One evening, while tucking the girls into bed, he whispered, "See, my loves, there are good people in the world. People who see your worth even when life is hard." And in their sleepy murmurs and soft giggles, he realized that kindness, real, tangible kindness, was contagious. It spread quietly, subtly, but with force enough to alter the course of lives. As he stood in the doorway, watching the girls drift to sleep, Jason felt an unfamiliar but comforting warmth. Maybe the world wasn't just a place of struggle. Maybe, just maybe, humanity still had room for miracles disguised as strangers. If you believe in the power of kindness and second chances, go ahead and like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel Kindness. And tell us in the comments, where are you watching from? Months later, Jason often returned to that 2 a.m. diner, not because he needed anything, but because it was the place where hope had walked in and changed everything. And sometimes Lauren would sit with him, sipping coffee, quietly watching the chaos of life unfold with a smile. They never expected fanfare. They never needed recognition. But the world, they realized, was made better by moments like these. Moments where humanity saw itself reflected in compassion, where giving was an act of love, and where strangers became life-altering allies. The diner's neon sign still flickered, the rain still fell sometimes, and the world remained unpredictable. But Jason's life, and the lives of his triplets, had shifted in ways unimaginable. All it took was someone noticing, someone believing, someone choosing kindness over indifference. And that's the beauty of it. One small act of recognition, one gesture of belief, can ripple through the most exhausted hearts and brightest futures alike. So if you believe in the transformative power of kindness, hit like, share this story, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to the Kindness channel, because every time we lift someone else, we remind the world that humanity is alive, and that even in the darkest hours, light can be found and shared.